A vacation. It's one of the things that's wonderful here in Florida is they get a week off for Thanksgiving. And we gathered around the table and we played this really silly game. I think it's called Bandits, but I'm not 100% sure. Where you put this plastic thing on your head and you reach in and you get a card, and then the person or people around you are trying to tell you what you are. So you may get an envelope. So you're like, well, am I a living thing? Am I not a living thing? It can get very silly. I found out that I'm really bad at that game. My kids were way better than me. I never guessed what was right. But I feel like when I read this passage today, this is almost the game that's going on, because Pilate is trying to figure out who is this person named Jesus. This Jesus of Nazareth, who is he? Is he a king? Is he a prophet? Is he a teacher? Who is he? Is he a threat? Or is he just a teacher that Pilate can ignore? I know some of you must be sitting in your pews going, why are we reading this story about Pilate and Jesus when they're getting ready to crucify him here in November? Well, today happens to be the Reign of Christ Sunday. It's the Sunday that we remember that Jesus is our King. It's also the last day in our liturgical year. Next week, we start a new year. Wow, Advent. To me, I think it's very fitting that before we start going into Advent, that we think about Jesus as the King. Jesus as the one who leads us and guides us. Before we start singing about this babe in a manger, we have to think about who is he? Who is this one that came to die on the cross for us? Because I think if we only look at Jesus as the babe of Bethlehem, if we only sing about the wise men coming and the angels proclaiming his glory, but we forget his teachings, and we forget that he was willing to die for us on the cross for our salvation, then we miss the whole point. We miss the whole point. This week, I happened to have to go out on Black Friday. I had to run in and get something, and I just remember driving down and seeing people all over the road, and I said to my daughter, wouldn't it be great if all the enthusiasm for all these deals and Black Friday specials had the same people were sitting in church on Sunday? It's easy, as I said last week, for us to forget that Jesus is our leader, that Jesus is the one who came to teach us and to show us how to be better people. When we think of a king, we don't usually think of Jesus. For Pilate, it must have been very, very hard for him to see this person standing in front of him and having people say that he had power. For Pilate, people who had power were like the Roman Empire, who came in and took over and ruled with mighty fists. The crucifixion did not just happen to Jesus. In the history of the Jews, when the Romans came in and took over Palestine, they tried to rise up against this mighty power. And history tells us that between 2,000 and 2,500 Jews were crucified to show the Jews what power meant and to show the Jews to stand in line and to fear. For power, in Pilate's mind, was that you had to rule the people with fear. You had to rule the people with might. You had to keep them in place. You had to have them trembling so that they would listen. But here comes Jesus, this man to the Romans, the enemy. This man who heals those who are ill. This man who preaches love and acceptance. This man is called the King of the Jews. He doesn't rule with fear. He doesn't rule with might. He rules with love and with action. He rules with love and with kindness and gentleness and action. When I look at the world today, I find that I want to follow a king like that. I don't want people to fear me. I don't want power to rule over others. That kind of power really doesn't change anything. All it does is cause more suffering and more pain. But to be followers of Jesus, it means that we must imitate our King, our leader. That we must show compassion and gentleness and kindness in words. Kindness in words. We're about ready to enter Advent. You would think we already have. Because when I look at all the sales and I listen to the music, when I walk into Winn-Dixie or Walmart or any of those places, it's blasting out all over the place, all the Christmas music. It's the time when we're going to start singing Prince of Peace and King of Kings and Lord of Lords and humankind all coming together and peace on earth, and we're going to feel all warm and fuzzy. But I'm here to tell you that that just should not last for the weeks leading up to Christmas. Jesus doesn't call us just to be followers of the babe of Bethlehem. But Jesus calls us to be followers throughout the year. To love your neighbor as yourself. To share the love of God with those around you. To use your words and your actions in ways that lift up God and have power in the love that you share, rather than arguing with others or trying to have power over others or trying to enforce your way over others. Those are the leaders that Jesus came to say there is a better way. The Roman Empire was mighty and wonderful and strong and successful, but it did tumble and fall, did it not? Yet we are sitting here today worshiping a king that has no end. We are worshiping a king that preached love and acceptance and kindness and goodness, gave us the gift of a new power, the power of the heart. As we get ready to put up our Christmas trees, to wrap those presents, to look at those lights, and to celebrate that Jesus is born once again into our hearts, let us remember that that is only part of the story. An amazing part. But we wouldn't be sitting here worshiping the living King if we didn't remember that we are his disciples and that we are supposed to follow a king of compassion, a king of love, a king of action, positive, loving action. I know in today's environment, it is much easier to yell and scream and to have your loudest voice be heard. But Jesus told us that that way is not the path chosen for us who want to be disciples. The path for the Christian, the path for the Christ follower, the path for those who allow Jesus to reign in our hearts is the way of peace and love and compassion, because that is the way